There's my audience.
Beautiful.
Yep. There they are. All right. Is water wet? The most controversial question of our time that has baffled colleges and scientists all over the place. The answer is not as simple as you think, even though it sounds like a no-dur kind of question. You may be thinking I'm possibly the dumbest person you know right now, and that's fine. People thought that Eratosthenes, or whatever his name is, was when he said the Earth was round. Guess all their jokes fell flat now. Or they could just never get around to the fact that he was right. But seriously, just let me take a hold of your attention for at least 5 minutes, and I promise I won't sound that dumb. We have a dog as well. Pretty cool. Just to give you something to chew on for now is this. How can one be wet when they are covered by water in a swimming pool? Yeah, that didn't make any sense. It sounded a lot better in my head. So, but just stick with me, okay? Hopefully I didn't lose any credibility with you. Water is kind of an interesting thing for such a flavorless drink. What is this?
Water.
A cup.
Are you sure?
H2O.
Wow. Scientist. I was hoping you all would at least say water, or some of you may have said a cup, which is unfortunately wrong. But how did this thing in the cup get there? Like, how did the water in there get there? How did it become a matter that we can see? Taste and everything. How did it get to where it is? How did it become what it currently is? We know it's all over the place. And the reason is because it's a renewable resource known as dihydrogen monoxide. Or, as everyone knows it, like somebody said earlier, H2O. It is a liquid made of compressed atoms, but not as compressed to where we can't penetrate it like this right here. See, I can't push through that. It'd be pretty cool if I could, but I can't. As we're water, I can stick my finger in it and have very little resistance. So the atoms are compressed, but not really that much. We all know it's all over the place. And in case you didn't know what's in that little cup, or have a graduation level of a kindergartner, it is responsible for gigantic oceans, rain, and 60% of us. According to some people at usgs.gov, is what they said apparently. And they're also way smarter than me and should probably be doing this presentation and would be doing a lot better job at it. But anyways, there is no place on planet Earth where water cannot be found. It's everywhere. Let's set up why water is unique. Did you know that even though it is everywhere, we cannot make it ourselves? It's true, but weird. We know what water is made of, but the problem is that both the dihydrogen and monoxide are very dangerous gases. According to BBC.UK, they say if we try to make water, these two gases into a liquid, it might explode on us, which is insane. Water is a bit more complex than we thought. Much like the question, is water wet? Now that you're aware of what water is itself is more of a complex thing, perhaps I can convince you on why the actual question itself, is water wet, is more of a complex question than you may think. Let's look at the theory of what is wet. Because wet matters. What is wetness? Examples could be when somebody gets out of a pool and they're dripping water off of them, which is considered to be wet. Merriam-Webster defines it as a mean covered or soaked with liquid. Wet usually implies saturation, but may suggest a covering of the surface with water or something that is not yet dry. So why is this so important to understand? Because water itself cannot be under the process of being wet. Think about the definition of wet that I just mentioned earlier. Remember, for something to be wet, it has to be dripping off of it. For a solid object to be wet, it has to be dripping off of it. How can water drip off of water? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all because water is a liquid and not a solid. So how can it drip off itself when it's going to be more of an adhesive and wants to pair with itself and try to spread it over as much as it can? A quote from USCB Science Line says, if the cohesive forces are very strong, then the liquid molecules would really like to stay close together and they won't spread out the surface of an object as much. This is one of the few quotes that I would just love in this whole essay of what UCSB did on Is Water Wet? So in conclusion, we can see that water is not wet due to it wanting to absorb itself instead of trying to cover itself as much as it can. Water can make other materials wet, such as us, because we are solid matter, but it cannot be wet itself because it is, like I said, an adhesive and wants to adhere to itself. It's just science too. I mean, there's multiple essays and stuff on it. Now that you've gathered all this information that I've given you, what should you do with it now? I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, I just wanted to debunk the argument because there really isn't one. So next time you're faced with the question, is water wet? You can either ignore the question and brush it off, or you can do something about it and simply say, no. Thank you.
Bars.